Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to do a tutorial on a landing gear component that I'm releasing in the workshop, and I'm going to walk you through some different landing gear types and how to hook it up. Let's go! Alright, so what I did was grab various planes and their landing gear, and I'm going to show you how they all work a little bit different, and then I'm going to share with you a component that I'm sharing on the workshop that you can use to make your own landing gear really easy. That includes landing gear doors that open and close, and landing gear that goes up and down in various ways. And I'm going to show you the different ways to hook it up. But first, we're going to get started by checking out all of these cool planes landing gear. The first one I want to show you is the ME163. So the ME163 was a super tiny little plane by the Germans, and the landing gear did not go up into the plane. This landing gear is a little bit bigger than it should be, but the idea is that our landing gear did not fit up in the plane. And so in order to make it aerodynamic and get the plane moving pretty quick, they had the landing gear fall off once it was airborne. So it would drop off and do a little breakdancing. No, it did not do that. But it would drop off, and they would have a landing skid. And the landing skid could be retracted, and they would fly around for 7 minutes and I think 7 minutes and 25 seconds or something like that. They would run out of fuel and have to land. And what they did was go ahead and pull out their skid and land with a tiny skid and their wheel, and then they would reset. And what is this thing doing? All right, let me push this out of the way. Can you get out? Go somewhere else, please. All right, so we're going to leave the ME163 landing gear on. I don't want to get hit in the face while I'm trying to do the demos of these various landing gear. So what we're going to look at now is the IL-2, and the IL-2 has these landing gear pods, or at least that's what I call them, where the landing gear goes up and the doors close. And the way this works is we have a sensor reading, and the sensor reading is, or the sensor is right here, and what happens is it's seeing all this available space. And when there's a minimum available space or a low sensor reading, where there's like something in front of it, which is going to be that top ceiling, it's going to allow the doors to close. So that's our delay function, or our sequence function, if you want to call it that, a sequence in which the landing gear goes up and in, and then once the minimum level is reached, you'll see it right here. I don't know what's set to, like 30 maybe. The doors close. And so that's how you get your doors to close, not on top of your landing gear, but wait for them to get all the way up. So when the landing gear comes down, there's a delay so that the doors can open, and then the landing gear comes down. All right, so the next one is the B17? Yes, the B17. Okay, this is a B17 wing, and this is a landing gear that is easy to make. So it doesn't even go all the way up in there. You could if you want, but what the B17 did was have the wheel stick out a bit, just in case they had to do a belly landing. So this one works just by going straight up, the wheel sticks out a bit, it's done. Comes back down, and you're good to go. Alright, let's look at the B25. Now the B25 is one of my older planes, and its landing gear was a bit complicated for a couple reasons. First off, Stormworks physics were making the gear collapse, so this gear should actually be on this side and fold inward towards the back. What I had to do in order for it to work is I flipped it around. There's a little bit of wall here, and that keeps the landing gear from collapsing when taxiing. And also, because there was so much limited space with the engine and everything, the landing gear has a little trick to it where it's actually going upwards into this, like so it's pulling upwards on a rail, and then landing gear goes up. So I'll show you what it looks like really quick. So you'll see as that bar's going up, it's folding up, and then the landing gear closes, and it's good to go. And also the front gear is doing just a really simple going up and closing its gears. Looks like I missed some parts on this one. But this is how this landing gear works. It's a little bit more complicated than it should be, but that was only to fix the issues with limited space. So the last one I'm going to show you is the B24. Okay, so what's interesting about this B24 is not this back landing gear. This is actually pretty easy. The landing gear goes upwards and into the wing, and it's done. What's interesting about this plane is the way the landing gear works on the nose. So that is a free pivoting wheel. So when you're taxiing, your back wheels, if I can get around this, your back wheels are your brakes, and they're turning the plane. And then this wheel is pivoting. You can see this wheel move. It pivots freely. So that is like a free coaster kind of thing. And let me get it straight so we don't have any trouble here. And what's interesting is, since it's not on a pole like the rest of these, if you look like at the B25, oops, what am I stuck on? The B25, the landing gear goes up into the nose and the doors close. Really simple, easy. And again, the B24 landing gear goes up, it's done. But on the nose gear, if we can come back around here on the back, you can see, where is it at? Can't see it all yet. What it does, though, is you're going to see, when we run over here real quick, you're going to see the landing gear go up and pivot upwards. So the landing gear is almost on like a flat board that goes upwards and in, and then shuts the door. So I'm going to try to make it over there to see if we can see how it works, but I don't know. Let's see. Okay, so landing gear is starting to go up, and there is the pivot. And up it goes. And there's also a sensor on there. I don't know if you saw the sensor, but there's a sensor up there. And when it gets to a minimum, it's like, okay, these doors are good to close. And then, of course, we can go ahead and lower the landing gear. That one comes down. Those are a little bit slow, but the doors open. And the landing gear comes out. So this is an older plane with the landing gear. This was before the microprocessors and all the good stuff. So all of these planes, besides, well, I guess, besides the IL-2, are not running microprocessors. It's old school logic. But what I'm going to show you today is an easy way to make your own landing gear. And it's a microprocessor. You can create, I think, almost all of these landing gear within a few seconds just by hooking this microprocessor up, and you don't have to mess with any logic, and you're done. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that. So let's go ahead and get out of the graveyard of planes here and get started. Alright, so the first example, as you saw, is the component using all of its features. It's using the delay, it's using the sensor, it's using the robotic pivots for the landing gear doors and the landing gear. So that is what it can fully do if you want to go crazy and make a landing gear that goes up and hides it. So the next example is going to be a simple one, which has just a landing gear, one robotic pivot, and that is it. And I'm going to show you how to hook that up. Pretty simple. All we have to do is hook up the robotic pivot to the gear inverted or the gear non-inverted. Now the reason I have these two, and I also have that for the doors, is sometimes when you're building, you'll hook up a rotor in a different way, you copy paste it. And so instead of like having to do that, you can just go ahead and, you know, do one here and one to the other one. So I'm not sure which way this is going to turn, but let's see here if we can find out and make a good guess. So I'm going to say that that positive is going to be a 1, and we want the non-inverted version. Oops, did it say inverted? Yeah, it says inverted. Non-inverted version. And then for the delay, we're going to go ahead and route the to delay, which is going to be right straight into there. So that just is going to skip the delay and go ahead and make it move. So that is it. The other thing we need is a button. Put the button to the input, and we are done. There's no we don't need the sensor. We don't need the doors. So we're good to go. Let's make sure we have power on this thing. 1 second, just to make sure. Power, power, power. Okay, now if I hooked up that gear inversion correctly, if it's inverted or non-inverted, it should work. So let's do it. Ready? Oh, there it goes. So we put it back down, and it goes down. All right. So just to show you, I have a third example, and this is pretty simple. And I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like. And that is just a sideways one. Now, the point is your landing gear can go sideways. It can go up, it can go to the right and left. And all you're doing is hooking it up exactly the same way. All you need to know is where is your pivot point going. In this case, it's going to go positive again. So we're going to hook up the non-inverted version. Boom. Hook up the button. Boom. Hook up the delay to the delay. And we should be done. And there's really no difference between these two, but sometimes your brain thinks that something different is happening. And we could actually fix that landing gear a little bit better. So let's go ahead and do that. So what I like to do with landing gear that is being difficult is I will go ahead and make the landing gear have a little bit of a bend in it. So if we do this, we'll paste it, and then we'll go ahead and clean up our landing gear like this. Watch this. Just by adding a little bit of a, we could even come in more. Okay, let's bring this down a little bit more. And we could make it like, say this is like a Mustang. I think Mustangs have this kind of landing gear. Let's see here. Oh, I always have trouble with that. So now we have a pivot. And what that's going to do, or not a pivot, but we have a little angular thing here. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow the landing gear to fit. And this is when you have no room in your wing. You can do it several ways. Sometimes I've had wings or had landing gear that just lay flat against it. You could do that too if you just move this a little bit back, and then it would just slap right on here. So let's see. Here we go. I'm going to show you what this looks like. Again, the gloomy weather is making the lighting really bad, but I've got my little headlamp on, and we're going to go that, and there we go. So now you almost have a flush landing gear, and that's how you build landing gear that goes in the wing. And this is the simple landing gear that just goes up like a B-17. And you could do the same thing if you needed to. See, that one's pretty good. It's pretty flat, so that's good. All right, so the last thing I want to show you is how to hook up this guy and how this works. So this is the guy that you want to watch. If you're going to go full-blown, I'm going to show you how this is done. And I'm going to show you how to build this. Actually, let's go ahead and start from scratch and just delete all of this. Okay, I am going to keep the structure because I want to make it easy for you to see what is here. So we have 2 pivots, one for each landing gear door. Depending on your design, you could have 1 pivot over here and a larger landing gear door that covers all of it. But for this one, I have it split. As you can see, it's split, and it comes in and covers. So all of that is artistic design and what the plane you're building is going to require. Then I have the smaller wheel, and I'm able to fit it in this smaller space, which is 3 blocks tall. And the pivot is all the way in the corner, and that will flatten up against the top here. I have put a sensor on my landing gear. Now, you have to put the sensor on the landing gear, so when this moves upwards, you're going to get a reading of the distance it has left. So when you get a low reading, like it's 0.50 or 0.20, you go ahead and you use that number to determine when these doors can close. So here's one thing I learned the hard way. If you put this if you put this sensor on the landing gear where it goes up against the wall, it will read through the wall and get a larger number whenever you're flying the plane, doing rolls or whatever, and the landing gear will open back up. So what you want to do is put it back a little bit if you can, so that the reading is at least a block distance from the wall. So there's a space where that red thing is, there's a space where it's given room to make a reading. So that's important if you don't want your landing gear to keep opening. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull this little guy out, and we're going to put that down, and that is our component. Then we're going to come over here to the knot and grab one of these, and then I just put it away, but I did want that display. Now, the display is what you're going to use to get your reading, and what I like to do is what you see here is I'll make a bar and a floor, and I will put my plane up in the air. So I'll put it on stilts, basically, so I can come test it. And then what I will usually do is get a button, and toggle buttons are my friend. I like the toggle buttons for landing gear rather than the other button where you put a push to, what's it called? Push to toggle, because this one allows it to be brightly on, and you can do that to like indicate that the landing gear is down. Now it drains your battery a little bit, but it looks cooler. Okay, and the next thing I do is put a display, if I can get the right, oops, am I doing the right way here? There we go. There's my display. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hook all of this up. First off, these giant batteries back here, we're going to make sure all our pivots are hooked up. Our button, we don't need this unless we're going to light this up, which we're not, so I'm not worried about that. Then we're going to hook our sensor to the display. Now, all we want to know is what this number is before we start messing with our landing gear doors. So we're going to go ahead and hook our button to the component where it says button input. Okay, gear control button input. We're going to go ahead and hook this to here really quick. We don't need a delay right now, so we'll ignore the delay. And we're going to hook our gear inverted or gear non-inverted to our landing gear pivot. So let's see what this is. So that is a positive. So a positive number is going to bring it upward. So we know by clicking on this what everything's set to. Now this is our greater than less than. This is kind of over-engineered. I probably will take that out in a future version so that you just have a less than. So if it's less than 0.30, we can go ahead and bring up our doors, not our landing gear. The landing gear goes up, the doors come up when it goes to 0.30, and we're good to go. So all right, so now that we know that, we're going to go ahead and get the non-inverted version and put it in there. And what we're going to do is come over here, spawn it, and we're going to go ahead and check to see if it has a reading. So 2.74, that is what it is right now. That's a sensor reading right here. So it's reading that distance here, probably a little farther. So then we're going to go ahead and push the button. The landing gear is going to start going up, and you're going to see, if I can turn this off, this number go lower and lower. So it's like 0.25, 0.26. You can see it kind of fluctuate. So anything under 0.30 is probably going to be good. So we're going to go back in here, and we're going to set our component to 0.30, which it already is because it's a default for the IL2. So 0.30. You could raise this if you want to make sure that you have a little leeway in case the sensor bounces around or anything. So we'll do 0.31, which is fine. These are our doors, remember, and our landing gear. So these are fine. A 1 and a 0 is always going to make our pivots go up and sideways. So that's good to go. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you something. I'm going to go ahead and leave the delay off, and we're going to hook up the gear. Now we look at the gear by saying, okay, this is a positive to shut, and this is a negative. See, the negative is going to shut the door. So what we're going to do is come over here. This is inverted gear. No, we don't want the gear. We want the gear doors. We're going to get the inverted gear and the non-inverted gear. Okay, so I'm going to test this without the delay and show you the issue without the delay. And we're going to get, oh, yeah, I know what I forgot. So I forgot to hook up this to the sensor. All right, so what I forgot to do was hook up the sensor to the component. So what the sensor is doing is going to output its reading to the component. All right, what we're going to do now is go ahead and hit the spawn and see what it acts like now that we have the sensor hooked up, but not the delay. So the delay is not hooked up. And we're going to hit the button, and the landing gear is going to go up. You see the sensor reading is good to go. At 0.31, the doors will shut, which is fine. Looks great, wonderful. But what can happen, depending on how fast your landing gear come down, if you hit the button now, the landing gear is going to push against the door, and it's going to come down quickly. So this is not too bad. I've got the motors pretty slow. So what we want to do, even though this is not too bad, because what will happen is if this landing gear was any faster, it would push up against the doors, and the landing gear would possibly jam, and the doors would not open. So what we're going to do is see if we can simulate that by changing our settings. I'm going to go ahead and change the pivot point, or change the speed. So right now it's 0.2. Let's remember that. Let's do it faster. Okay. All right, so I just want to show you what it looks like and why we have the delay. So it went up really fast. So if I go down now, see, there's no delay, so it's coming on down. So depending on how fast you have your landing gear, that becomes an issue very quickly. So yeah, see that? This one's actually trying to open, and it does, but it looks terrible. All right, so what we're going to do is put our pivot back to slow motion mode, or I like to call it realistic mode, and go ahead and hook up the delay. So the delay, remember we hooked the delay to itself here, or at least the sensors that are checking for the delay. And we're just going to hook it to the delay now, and then back to the input. So delay in, delay out, and then what we're going to do is set this delay. Wait, is this not a delay? Where's my check? Did I not put it? What did I put? I put a not. Okay, ignore that. Yeah. My tutorials are good. All right. So let's try again. Alright, so now that you know what the door does with no delay, and if you have a fast landing gear, we're going to go ahead and hook the delay up. So we do this by coming back down here, and we have route to delay. So we route to the delay, and then you'll see this one that we hooked it to here earlier says input from delay. So we're going to bring this over, and boom. So it's out to delay, and then back into the component. And then we're going to go ahead and set this to a 0.5, which it already is. And that's good. And then we're going to test it. Okay, so we're going to look at the landing gear and what it does when we have a delay. Are you ready? I'm going to push the button. The sensor is working. The doors are going to close at 0.31. There they go. And everything is good. The landing gear is hidden and we can't see it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open it up again, but we're going to see that this delay is going to let the doors have a little more time to open, and then the landing gear will come down. And it just keeps them from getting stuck. This is probably the best way I've found in my plane builds to sequence the landing gear. I'm sure there's better complex ways that you can do with code, but I'm not good at logic. So this is how I do it, and I want to make it simple for you too. So that is why I'm releasing this component if you'd like to build landing gear. Now let's see how it works. We push the button and watch that landing gear have a little delay. There it is. Did you see it? It was little, but it waited for the doors to start opening, and then it came down. And that is what it does. All right, that's about it for today. I just wanted to share this component with you and how I build landing gear and the landing gear from the past. So I'm going to go ahead and upload this component to the workshop. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and leave them in the comments below, or you can go to the Discord and you can find me there. That's it, and I'll see you next time. I've got no plane to run to. Oh dear.
It's a little bit different than everything else because the landing gear actually does not... How come I can't jump? I can't jump. Why can't I jump? Compact robotic pivot, but the compact robotic pivot. Alright, so this example is using all the components, inputs, and outputs. Ev, I'm sure I can hear you peeing in my movie. That's disturbing. Don't pay in my video.